It's crazy how one moment, one conversation, can change everything you thought you understood about someone, especially when that someone is your dad. I mean, the man who raised you, taught you how to tie your shoes, scared away the monsters, under your bed. How do you go from that to silence? I've been holding on to this story for a long time, and every time I tried to speak it, the words would just fall apart in my throat. But I think I'm ready now, not just for me, but for anyone out there who's ever had a moment with someone they love that shattered everything. It happened between me and my dad. And yeah, it ruined everything. Or maybe it just revealed what was already broken. I was never the kind of kid who fought with my parents. I wasn't perfect, not by any stretch, but I respected my dad. Maybe too much. You see, he wasn't the kind of guy who said, "I love you." He showed it, through work, through sacrifice, through being there at every school pickup. That was his language. So I learned to speak his language too. Keep it together, don't cry, keep pushing, keep quiet. And for a long time, I thought we understood each other. But here's the thing. No one tells you about getting older. The gap between who your parents think you are and who you're becoming starts to widen. And if you're not careful, that gap can turn into a canyon. It started the summer I turned 20. I was in college, coming home for a break. I had just changed my major, something I hadn't told him yet. I was nervous, but not because I thought he'd be angry. I wanted him to be proud. And I knew what he expected from me. The plan had always been simple. Go to business school, graduate, take over the family business eventually. That was the track, and I was on it. Until I wasn't. See, I had fallen in love with writing. Not business reports, not marketing plans, stories, real ones, human ones. I started taking creative writing classes, started publishing small pieces in the college magazine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was really breathing. Like I wasn't just following some script. I was finally writing my own. But I hadn't told my dad. Not yet. So that summer, we were sitting out on the porch. I remember the smell of the grill, the sound of cicadas, the way the light was soft and golden. It felt like a good moment to tell him, so I did. And at first, he didn't say anything. He just sat there. Then he stood up, didn't look at me, just walked over to the grill, flipped something that didn't need flipping. And finally he said, "Why?" One word, but it felt like a wall slamming down. I tried to explain. I told him I wasn't quitting school, just changing direction, that I wanted to write, that I needed to, that I had found something that made me feel alive. But he just shook his head. And then he said something that hit me like a punch I never saw coming. He said, "So you're throwing your life away?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. I said, "Dad, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm trying to build something real." And that's when he turned and looked at me. And I'll never forget. "This," he said, "you don't know what real is." And that was it. That was the moment. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't fists or yelling or slamming doors. It was silence. And that silence stretched into days. Then weeks. We barely spoke the rest of the summer. When I left to go back to school, he didn't hug me, just said, "Take care." 3 words that felt like a full stop. For months after that, I kept wondering what I could have done differently. Was I selfish? Naive? Was I wrong for wanting something more? Something different? I talked to my mom. She told me he was just hurt, that he had built his whole life around providing a path for me, and now he felt like I was walking away from everything he worked for. But it didn't feel like I was walking away. It felt like I was trying to step into my own skin. And here's the thing nobody tells you when you're growing up. You can love someone and you can disappoint them. You can be doing what's right for your soul and still break someone's heart. And sometimes, there's no way around that. Slow. Music fades into a more hopeful tone. It took 2 years for us to really talk again. Not the surface stuff, birthdays, holidays, weather. I mean talk. And when we finally did, it wasn't dramatic. There wasn't a big apology or emotional breakdown. We were sitting in the garage. He was fixing something, like he always did. And out of nowhere, he said, "I read that piece you wrote, the one about Grandpa." And I just froze. Because I had written that piece from a place of real pain. It was about legacy, expectations, and the weight of being someone's hope. He said, "It was good." That's all. But it was enough. Because for him to say it was good, that was his way of reaching out, of saying he was listening now, that maybe he didn't understand everything, but he wanted to try. We still don't see eye to eye on everything. We probably never will. But what happened between me and my dad, as much as it hurt, it forced us both to stop pretending, to stop performing the roles we thought we had to play. And yeah, maybe it ruined everything that wasn't real. But in the ruins, we found something new, something honest. Don't think relationships break just because of one conversation. I think they break when people stop being willing to understand each other. And I think they heal when someone, anyone, takes the first step. That day in the garage when he said, "It was good," that was his step. And when I said, "Thanks, Dad, it meant a lot to hear you say that," that was mine. So maybe the worst moment between us wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. You know, after that small step in the garage, things didn't magically go back to normal. I think people expect that. Like once you talk, the pain just disappears. But it doesn't. It lingers. It echoes. We still had awkward moments. Still had long silences over dinner. Still avoided certain topics like landmines. But slowly, over time, something started to shift. Not in big ways, but in tiny cracks of light. He started asking questions, not many, and not always at the right time, but questions like, "What are you working on these days?" Or, "Who reads this stuff?" And I'd answer. Sometimes he'd nod, sometimes he wouldn't. But he was trying, and I could feel that. One night, I got home late from a reading I had done in the city. It was a small event, nothing fancy. But to me, it mattered. I had read a piece about fathers and sons. Fictional, but not really. You know what I mean? I came in through the back door, thinking everyone was asleep. But there he was, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, just staring at nothing. And he said, without looking at me, "Was it about me?" I sat down, slowly, took a breath, and I said, "Parts of it." He didn't say anything for a long time, just nodded, then finally said, "I see." That's all. But that moment felt bigger than any apology, because what he was really saying was, "I know I've hurt you, and I'm starting to understand why." The thing is, my dad never had a dad who listened, or talked, or asked him what he wanted. His father was hard, cold, distant. So my dad taught himself how to be a provider, how to be a wall no one could break. That's how he learned to love. Quietly, sacrificially. So when I came along and I started breaking the mold, it felt like betrayal to him. Not because I meant to hurt him, but because it reminded him of the freedom he never had. I started realizing something important during that time. Sometimes the people who hurt us are carrying hurts of their own that they've never unpacked. And when we clash, it's not always anger. Sometimes it's grief. Grief for the connection they never knew how to build. There were days when I still felt like giving up. Days when I questioned if we could ever really understand each other. But I kept going, kept sharing my work, kept asking about his projects, kept showing up. Because love isn't loud, it's consistent. I think we expect healing to be a dramatic gesture, a teary-eyed confession, a breakthrough moment. But sometimes, healing looks like sitting in the same room, in silence, and staying. It looks like two people figuring out how to be in each other's lives without pretending anymore. We're in a better place now. Not perfect. Not even close, but better. A few months ago, he came to one of my readings. Sat in the back, arms crossed, just watching. When it ended, I wasn't sure what he thought. I was nervous, honestly. But as I was packing up, he came over and said something I'll never forget. He said, "Your words make people feel things. That's a gift." I didn't see that before. And I stood there, frozen. Because in that moment, I didn't hear just his words. I heard everything he'd been trying to say for years but didn't know how. I heard, "I'm proud of you." I heard, "I see you." I think that's all we really want deep down. To be seen. Not just for what we do, but for who we are, for what we carry, for what we dream. My dad and I, we still clash sometimes. We still walk on old battle lines from time to time. But there's a new kind of respect now, a quiet understanding. He knows I didn't reject him. I just needed to become me. And I see him more clearly now, too. Not just as dad, but as a man. A flawed, complicated, quietly courageous man who did the best he could with what he had. You know, there's something heartbreaking about realizing your parents are human. But there's something beautiful in it, too. Because once you stop expecting them to be perfect, you can start loving them for real. Not for what you wish they were, but for who they are. If you've had a moment like mine, where something happened that cracked the foundation between you and someone you love, I want you to know this. It doesn't have to be the end. It might hurt. It might take time. It might never look the way it did before. But if you both want it, if even one of you is willing to keep showing up, something honest can grow in the place where the hurt used to live. Not perfect, but real. And sometimes, real is even better. I'm heading to visit him now. We don't talk about everything. Some things stay unsaid, but that's okay. What matters is that we're still showing up. And sometimes, that's everything. It happened between me and my dad, and it changed everything. But maybe it needed to. It's funny, really, how we carry moments with us. Tiny seconds stretched across years, a porch light that never went out, the smell of his flannel shirts in the winter, the way he used to tap the steering wheel to the beat of old songs on the radio. Those moments, I still have them. Even when we weren't talking, they never left me. And that's the thing about love. It doesn't disappear just because it gets quiet. It hides, it waits, it survives things you didn't think it could. But here's what nobody really prepares you for. The day you stop being a child and start seeing your parents as people. It's not a clean break. It's not even a moment you can circle on a calendar. It happens in pieces, slow realizations, little griefs. It's when you realize they were doing the best they could with what they knew, and sometimes that still wasn't enough. And somehow, you have to learn how to hold that. I remember sitting across from my dad at a diner, maybe a year after, that garage moment. We hadn't talked about the past, still danced around certain things, but then he said, totally out of the blue, "Do you think I messed it all up?" And I looked at him. This man who had always looked 10 feet tall to me. This man who once lifted me with one arm and made me believe nothing in the world could touch us. And now here he was, older, softer, asking me something so human, so vulnerable. I could have listed everything, all the missed chances, the times I felt alone, the words he didn't say when I needed them most. But I didn't. Instead, I just said, "No, Dad, I think we both did the best we could. And we're still here, that has to count for something." He nodded, wiped his mouth with a napkin, didn't say anything else. But I saw it in his eyes. Relief, regret, gratitude, maybe even love. That's the thing. Healing isn't loud. It's not a movie scene. It's not shouting in the rain or hugging at the airport or making promises that sound poetic. It's slow. It's awkward. It's showing up anyway. It's being in the room with someone who hurt you and realizing you still want to be there. And I'll be honest, there are still things I wish were different. Things he'll never say. Things I'll never fully understand about the way he grew up, what he was taught, what he was afraid of. But there's a strange kind of peace in accepting that, in choosing to stop needing the apology and start living the forgiveness. Not for him. For me. A few months ago, he asked me to help clean out the garage. Again. Same garage where everything broke, and where everything started again. We found an old box of my childhood drawings. Crumpled paper, stick figures, dragons with 6 legs, and right there in the middle was a drawing of him. I had written in crooked letters, "My dad, the strongest man in the world." He picked it up, smiled quietly, and said, "You really believe that, huh?" I said, "Yeah, I did. And you know what? In a way, I still do. Not because he never failed, but because he kept trying, even when he didn't know how. That's strength too. So, yeah, it happened between me and my dad, and it ruined everything that wasn't real. But in its place, we built something new, something slower, something more honest. And if you're out there wondering if something broken can ever be whole again, let me tell you something I had to learn the hard way. It doesn't go back to how it was. It becomes something else, something more real, something you choose again and again, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. And sometimes, that's better than perfect. We're not the same people we were back then, but somehow we're still us. And that means everything. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering and choosing to love anyway.